Welcome everybody to our third forum that's hosted by Eduwebinar. I'm Karen Bonanno, the National Director for Eduwebinar, and I'll be hosting and facilitating this particular forum, this roundtable forum. And I'm delighted to have Laurie and Chanel, who've volunteered to step in and share their insights and their wisdom and their experiences and maybe the ups and downs and challenges that they faced as a result of exploring about why they would set up a school library website. Just a couple of things. We'll get you to remain on mute because then that means that we're not going to get interference with any external noise. Also too, if you have any questions, it's best to key them into the chat, the Zoom chat, so that we've got those ready. And we're just going to really let Chanel and Laurie focus on their presentations, and we'll have some question time at the end of each presentation. And then if we have time, if some of you have some extra tips and ideas and even things that you've experienced, we can open it up to the wider audience as well. So thank you, Chanel and Laurie, for being willing to step in and share with us. So I'm going to hand over to Chanel to introduce yourself and get us underway for the forum.
Great. Thank you very much, Karen. And hello, everyone who's joined us tonight. My name's Chanel Leithater. I am a teacher librarian at Penrose College, which is a pre-kindy to year 12 college, private school in Perth. So I will say as a disclaimer, I didn't create the whole website that I'm about to show you. There was already parts of it there. I just came into Penrose kind of late last year and have since kind of tweaked it and added bits and modified it a little bit. So I will show you where we started off with. Basically, we had the LibGuide. So this is the part I've created, but before I created this page, there was already these research guides as part of this LibGuide that had been custom made prior to my time. And then we had the databases tab, and we had a study skills tab. And so basically, it was really difficult to get to this site. It was really convoluted. Staff and students would have to go through the learning management system and do multiple clicks and remember multiple things to try and get here. So one of the first things I wanted to do was create an easier way to access it, I guess. Also, as you can see, this is very senior school focused. So the research guides are for year 7s to 12s. And there wasn't really anywhere for the junior school databases and resources to sit. There was nowhere on here for contact details for the library, no information about the staff or how to book spaces or anything like that, and no access really to our ebook or audiobooks. So I thought it was really important to have somewhere to house those things that were super easy to access. So I saw the need for 2 separate landing pages, and I ended up creating a senior school landing page, which is this one here, which I'll tell you a bit more in a little bit. And then also junior school library landing page, which I'll show you a little bit later as well. But the thing was, access to these was still an issue. So I spoke to my head of library, and he spoke to IT, and he confirmed that we could actually get desktop icons set up on like a whole computer rollout. So that way staff would have little icons on their desktop, and so would students. So it's just a click and we come straight to this library landing page. So I think that's a really important feature to have, is easy access to whatever website you're making. It needs to be easy to find, otherwise students and staff are not going to use it. So the senior school library landing page that I've got here, this was just created within that custom LibGuide that we already had created. So I just added an extra page and then figured out how to add a home tab to the navigation bar on the side here. And I wanted this landing page to be a one-stop shop for everything, all our databases and ebooks, access to everything basically digital that we had. And so I started off, I've imported the slider that you can see there of new releases. That's coming directly from the Oliver library management system. And that just automatically updates. So the best thing about this landing page is that it's there, it's kind of set and forget. I don't need to keep coming back and updating it unless there's something major that changes. So we've got the new releases being automatically pulled in from Oliver. We can also, I've added this search feature pulled in from Oliver as well, that you can just search the catalogue directly, and that will then take students in a new tab to results within the catalogue. I've made sure to put super easy access to our ebooks and audiobooks in a link here. We've got access to our databases, which is the same tab as we've got over on the side. So either of those will take you to the databases. We've got ClickView research guides, which match up to that one there, and referencing and study skills, which matches up to that page. Also got just general library information that staff or students may need to check, borrowing info, how to book a library space, how to contact us, and when our opening hours are. I've also set up a Microsoft form that when you click this link, it opens the form, and students can use this to suggest books that they'd like us to buy for the library. So kind of like a digital request form, which I think is a great feature to have on any school library website. We've got links to our Magpies database and our Good Reading magazine for young adults. We use My Bib reference guide, so there's a link to that. Recommended reads will open once again the Oliver website, and these are actually student reviews. So I think that's quite a good little feature as well. Library and news events. So if I have things to update that I would like to advertise to the senior school classes, I've made this link that then, within the news page, this is the junior version, here's the senior version here. So this is easier to update basically, because you can add the information boxes very easily. And so this is where I put events and other little bits and pieces that we're talking about during class that I want to direct them to. So all the graphics I've made here, these are all Canva created, all those icons, as well as these ones, the green ones. Canva is great. If you haven't used it, highly recommend signing up. You can get a free account with your education email. From there, I went into making the junior school landing page. So this is all now kind of senior school focused. The junior school landing page, because this is the LibGuides here, is very senior school focused. And these are all kind of linked to the senior school pages. I decided to create the junior school landing page in Oliver in the news area. So this is our junior school landing page that staff and students can access. Once again, new books at the top, links to the databases, teacher resources. We can modify these sliders to whatever's happening. I can see we've got Premier's Reading Challenge, we've got Waybra. I update the competitions when I get a chance, and the news and events as well. And we've got this suggest a book form on the junior page as well. So that is my part of the library website. that I've created. Are there some questions?
Yeah, there is. Oh, sorry.
Size of the team at Penrose. We have 2 part-time teacher librarians and 1 full-time teacher librarian. We've got a full-time library technician in the senior school with another 2-day-a-week library technician joining her. In the junior school, we've got a full-time library technician, and we've also merged with the digital literacy department. And so our head of library is head of library and digital literacy. So that we've got him and then 2 digital literacy specialists on the team as well. So big team. I'm not used to working in a team that big in the library actually, but I'm really liking it. It's great hearing everyone's perspectives and ideas and sharing everything.
So Chanel, do other people on the team have responsibility for the website, for sections of it, or is it you doing most of the work?
Like I said, with the landing page, that's just kind of set up and that does its own thing. So that doesn't really need updating. The research guides is what the TLs will work on. So as they create new LibGuides, that content automatically gets published to here. So that updates on its own, basically. As soon as the LibGuide they've created is set the status to published, it will show up on this page. So that's automated. I think most of our website, we've tried to keep it so that there's not a lot we have to do. And anything we do need to update frequently goes on the news pages in Oliver in the library management system. But yeah, usually it's my responsibility. People will just ask me tell me what they'd like to see added, and I can just whack it up quickly.
Yeah, we've got Amanda's asking about the form, your suggestion form. If she can
yes, the suggestion form.
Because yeah, she's saying it's smart to have it on the landing page. Great idea to make it easy for the students to.
So with the Microsoft forms, because all the students have their own Microsoft accounts, when they fill in this form and submit it, we automatically get an email that includes their email address. So they don't have to be putting their name or anything on the form. They just tell us what title or subject they're looking for to suggest. If they know the author, they can pop them in. I've asked them whether they've read it before, because sometimes students just like to recommend books for the library to buy that they've really liked, that they think other students will, and an option to reserve it if that's something that they'd like to do if we decide to purchase that book.
Great, thank you. Yeah, wonderful way to get them to be involved, but also have you got something about the reviewing as well, if they've already read the book? Or, how do you get the reviews done?
Yeah, that is through Oliver. I haven't promoted that a lot yet. That is on my list of things to do with my senior school classes, but students can, if we go and find a book, they can actually go into the record and write a review for it. So that's all done through through Oliver, through the library management system.
Yeah. Now, a couple of questions. One is probably easy to answer, and that's just the student population.
Oh, that's actually hard. I don't know. I only started at the end of last year, and I'm actually not sure. I know in junior school, most of it is double streamed, except for year 1 and 2, which are just single classes. The senior school, there's probably about 4 to 5 classes per year level, I would say.
Right.
So I don't know.
So total enrollment numbers, you know
I
that?
Don't know off the top of my head, I'm afraid. I can have a look while Laurie's doing her presentation.
Yeah,
I might
sure.
find out and pop
now,
that in.
Alison's asked about, she said it's probably just an Oliver soft link question, but I'm sure that there are others who are using that same library management system. It says, do you have 2 branches set up for Oliver, one for senior, one for junior?
Yes, I do. Or yes, the school has that set up. So the library technicians obviously had that already in place, but you do see when you go to the news page, I can choose which one I want to see. But the desktop icons, students and staff will automatically be taken to the page that relates to them. So whatever branch they're part of, they see either the junior news page or the senior news page automatically.
Okay, and that's just based on their login. Once they log in, it automatically identifies
That's
the
right.
relevant landing page for them.
Yeah.
Sonia says, maybe a novice question, but novice questions are great. Love them. Does your library website sit in the Oliver software?
So this junior page does. So this is all within Oliver. So this is where you search the catalogue. This is where you can browse lists. However, the senior one, this is the LibGuides software that's that we've used to create this one. And it's a custom-made one. So this was all custom-made with all these side tabs before I arrived at the school. I've just added this landing page as a page in that LibGuide.
Yeah, I love the colours. And as you say, I put a comment in the chat. What would we do without Canva?
Oh, yes, love it.
It's just a magic tool to use for these type of environments. Nice white space layout, great navigation. So yeah, thank you,
You're
Chanel.
very welcome.
So what I'm going to do now, if you want to stop sharing, and I'll get over to Laurie to then give us another different perspective about why you would set up a school library website.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here tonight. Thanks to Karen for hosting us and for me to be able to share a little bit about what we do with our school library website. This slideshow is really, those of you that heard me present before, I normally have a goodie bag. This is not a goodie bag situation. I've got some links I'll try and share in the chat, but otherwise Karen will send it out with her usual post-webinar email. This slideshow is really just to give you some visuals while I talk when I'm not demonstrating my website. So the good, the bad, and the awesome about having a school library website. The icon that you see here is what we use to promote LTC library within our school library. It incorporates our school logo and brands our website quite specifically as the library as opposed to our school website. We started off really with a very rudimentary website hosted by WordPress. I had to actually go to the Wayback Machine to find this because it had a different URL, and I didn't know where to find that. So I found this first iteration of ltclibrary.com. It's when we took a step into the customized domain name for our website. I'm actually going to take you through not just our website, but sort of some do's and don'ts for school library websites, design, why you would want a virtual space and things like that as part of what I'm sharing with you this evening. I figured we might have a bit of elbow room and a bit of extra time to do that, so I thought I would share that with you tonight. To give you a bit of context about Lake Tuggeranong College, it's the senior secondary school in the ACT. In the public school system, colleges are separate to high schools and primary schools and only have year 11 and 12 on campus. We currently have 570 students enrolled, and our library team comprises of myself and Holly Godfrey. We are 1.3 teacher librarians equivalent full-time. We also have 2 library assistants at the present time, one that is full-time and one that works part-time. Our staffing's undergoing a bit of fluctuation because of long-term leave of one of our staff members and a few other things going on, including shrinking enrolments, and that's simply just the demographic of our area at the present time. We're waiting for the bulge to come in 3 years' time where we'll be overrun by students again. But in the meantime, it gives us a nice, lovely community to work with. We know our students quite well and our staff, and it's really lovely to work with them. And part of that is providing them with a virtual space, because teenagers, particularly in the senior secondary space, actually really like to work off-site and online at weird times of the day, including at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we kind of hope to fill some gaps when we can't be there in person by having this website. The website you see before you, it's hosted by WordPress. We decided to go with an external provider. And what I tried to do with this first iteration was try and incorporate our school colours, which are white, teal and black. And we used a blog template in WordPress rather than a website template. I'm not quite sure why. I think possibly because I was using WordPress or ThinkSpace, which is the CSU equivalent, for my blogging for my study at this particular time. And so I was quite familiar with that. You can see that the menu is not particularly appealing, the menu items. There is some contrast between text and background, but, you know, looking back on it now, it's kind of a bit embarrassing to share it with you all, to be honest. You can see the menu is duplicated on the right-hand side. I'm not quite sure what I was thinking about when I did that. I kind of drive the website stuff between Holly and I. We joke about Holly being the analog TL and me being the digital TL, but she's taking on a bit more of this now as she's developing her technical skills. Yeah, so that's the original iteration, which is kind of, I don't know what. And then you come to ltclibrary.com today, you can see there's a marked difference. We've moved to a website template. The image of our college, I'll just go back. This little white building here is actually the library. It's a shared use space with one of 8 public library branches in the ACT, and it's beautiful, and it's actually won awards, and it's architecturally designed. And part of our college, which sits over here, and we sit on Lake Tuggeranong, and we get this big round window, which is incorporated in our icon, is the most stunning part of our library, and the kids really like sitting near it and stuff like that. Let's see. So as you can see, this is a much cleaner looking website. It's a lot more appealing. The menu is less cluttered looking. The widget on the side is really about just information rather than a duplicate of the menu. Our landing page, this is our home page, has some very minimal information on it. I'll walk you through the live site. Let me just jump in over here. And so you could see we have a link to our library orientation video, which goes for about 5 minutes. My challenge is next year to cut it down to less than 5 minutes, knowing what attention spans of teenagers are like. Times, contact numbers, where we're located in Tuggeranong. The drop-down menus, we actually, with this, we wanted a template that was quite dynamic. We went down a bit of a rabbit hole when choosing the template for this website, because WordPress, when you subscribe to a plan, gives you way too many templates to choose from. Holly had a specific thing in her head about menus. They couldn't have, she doesn't like the stars, but we couldn't get a template that didn't have that or something different. It had to have a particular look and feel about it. And I'll show you in a moment our brainstorming around the template, but we narrowed it down to about 4 or 5 and then eventually landed on this. We have chosen the main menu items to be quite simple and putting the sub menu items as a list below, and then you can just click on it and go to the page. We, we just have the main things, and we also have a space for teachers as well. This whole website came about through consultation with staff and students. And we, sort of brainstormed using paper, and it just sort of made it more inclusive, because what we do is with staff and students is that we tell them this is their library website. This is their virtual library. we put the things on there that they tell us that they need, but if they have suggestions or for URLs or additional menu items, that they need to come and tell us and have a chat with us, and we'll add it, because this is for them. It's not for us. It's for them to use for their teaching and learning. And that is really important when you have a school library website. There has to be ownership within your community. It can't be a standalone, or I think they need this. It's got to be collaborative. I'll just head back to the slideshow to show you our doing. So when you're creating your school library website, so I'm kind of going from scratch here, you really need to, A3 paper and a pencil is really useful. So as you can see here, we wrote things out, we scribbled notes, we crossed things out. This on the right-hand side here is the list of template names, and we're like, do we like this? No, the image is too big, the banner's too big at the top, and we even had out of 10 how we rated that template. You could see H for Holly and L for Laurie, which is hilarious. And then you can see we sort of went with healthy living as the template name. Oh, it's weird. And then fonts, we sort of talked about font sizes, because sans serif fonts for accessibility are far easier to read than serif fonts. Like, you can get really down into it, but if you want your website to be accessible, that's important. Things that we wanted to test, things that we liked about, because we went out and visited other school library sites. It's like when you're doing refurbishments to your physical space, you go out and visit other schools. When you're setting up a new site or refurbishing your current site, which some of you may be here to do tonight, it's important to go and visit other school library sites. Or if you're part of a list, say, hey, hit me with your URL for your school library website. What do you like? What don't you like? What worked? What didn't? But in the end, it has to tailor to your specific school community. And then this is our first sketch or brainstorm of our website. So you can see here, we've got website, we've got the things we want, drop-down format, links to and from our school library website, school site, which I'll talk about shortly. Things like the home page, so you can see the first iterations of our menu items, and you can see where Holly's erased and made changes as well. And this was because what we did was we showed the students this and said, does this make sense to you? And they said, no, actually, what are you trying to do here? And when we explained it, they said, you should actually, name it this, particularly for classes and assignments, which on our website includes useful URLs for particular subject areas. And they said that makes more sense to us than whatever we had originally. And then you can see scribbles and arrows, and it's all a bit hectic what widgets we wanted to add to the website on the side. Do we want pingbacks available? Do we want people to comment? Do we want breadcrumbs at the top? So for those of you who are new to this space, if you have a good website, you want people to track back to where the original page that they came from. So you either have people click on URLs and open it in new windows, or you provide like a trail, a breadcrumb trail at the top to say home, and then classes and assignments, and then English, and then the page that they're sitting on, and then they can click back 2 pages quite easily. So we thought right down to all of this, because I've done some website design PL, and so that was really helpful to us, even down to, access to our Border Senior Secondary site so that students could access things about academic integrity and things like that. So speaking of considerations, we're going to talk about these now. So the first consideration when you're doing a school library website is the purpose, the why, very existential. But why are you doing this? Is it because all the other kids have one? That school has one, so I need to have one. Is it because your school leadership says, oh, I went to a conference and their school library has this and I think we should have one? Is it because you can see a true need to support teaching and learning, curriculum, particularly general capabilities, that sort of thing, pedagogy? Or is it because you want to be ready to go for when if your school has to move back to a remote learning space again for any particular reason? The other thing you have to think about is, who does this website serve? It should be for your school community. And so it should be accessible for your staff and your students and even community members, like parents at home who are trying to support their children's learning, particularly for our younger years. They need that extra support. And so it has to be accessible to all those members of our community. Do you want this school library site to be an extension of your physical library services? So, you know, you can see with Chanel's website that, reading's a big thing, and links to popular reads and what's just come in and those sorts of things. That's what I love about the affordance in Oliver, of having that stream of stuff that's just come in, sort of slide showing across the top there. So that's something that you need to think about. Isn't it extension to make your library management system accessible externally? Something to think about that. The other thing is that in all of this, do you have the staff with the time and the expertise to manage updates and changes and services provided? And I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So the platform, where are you hosting your website? And I couldn't go past platform 9 3/4, very exciting. So what you have to think of with your platform that you choose is the ease of use. The other thing is, do you have the budget to go to something like WordPress, or, to upgrade to an ad-free version, or, can you make use of a website affordance like a widget, or embedding a form, or embedding videos and audio easily, or click view widgets easily on your site, or, is that what you're looking for? And that's why budget's important, because sometimes you have to buy a plan, particularly with something like WordPress. So you have to think of those sorts of things. Or do you want to make use of a free affordance? So if you're a Google school, you might want to use Google Sites, which won't cost you anything. Okay, and you've still got lots of very cool things you can do with that. Or you might want a platform that allows you to have a site counter or statistics, which I'll show you on our website shortly, to use for lots of different options, or do you just want it simple? So with WordPress, you've got stats. With Google Sites, you can sign up for Google Analytics, and then that will give you the stuff that you need without paying extra for it. Design, so the look and feel, it's really important, as you can see on our website, white space is key. It's a graphic design consideration. It makes it easier to read what's on the page. Don't clutter it, like the same thing as, with a PowerPoint presentation. Don't put it all in one spot. That's what menus are for, sub-menus are for, things like that. If it's too cluttered, people won't be able to find what they're looking for, and then they actually won't come and visit your site. So that's really important. With menu items, where are you placing them? So for Chanel, hers were on the left-hand side, and they're quite obvious in the space. We chose to go with having it at the top of the page, which is what you see a lot of in websites, ease of access. The other thing is, particularly if you're using icons, you have to consider, for accessibility purposes, for text readers, is alt text, so alternative text that sits behind. And so when you hover over your icon or your menu item, that people can read what that's about, particularly if it's an image or an icon. And so that's what I actually really like on Chanel's site, that for her quick links that she uses icons. Where actually, because I saw that at the summit recently, Madison Denali at St Paul's in Queensland, they use icons a lot on their website too, and we're actually thinking of moving to that as well. Thank you, Canva. Again, we should be getting paid commission for mentioning Canva tonight, by the way. It's a wonderful tool. And if you didn't know, you can sign up for a Canva for Education account, which allows you access to a whole lot of affordances that you wouldn't normally get. You'd have to pay for otherwise. So look into that. You have to consider color choices for your website. So Chanel's used really colourful icons and images to catch the eye, but it's not cluttered on the page. You might want to do things like include the colours from your school, so your school colours, to really embed yourself in the school community and have a link back to the school site. But in that, again, it's accessibility, where you have to have enough of a contrast between your text and your background to ensure that it's readable as well. The other thing you have to decide, we've already touched on this, is that the reflection of school library services in the physical world as well as in the digital world. Are you going to have the same, or are you going to go a little bit different? Are they going to be two discrete spaces? Do you want your site to be a 24-hour one-stop shop? That's kind of how we sell our site, because our students keep odd and weird hours occasionally. Is it an extension of your physical space and collection, which if you look at Chanel's, it is. Like, so it's, they can, students can walk into the library, but then they can see those same things on the website as well. Are you adding, is your site more of a repository for your digital resources, e-resources, databases, access to apps, those sorts of things? Will your site have academic and wellbeing links? So on our website, we have a help, I'm stuck, and that guides them either to us as teacher librarians or to our student services team and to Kids Helpline and things like that as well. In our library, because we treat our library as third space, as a wellbeing space as well, that's really important to us to have those supports for our students electronically. Are you going to include fun stuff? Like if you're working with junior students, are you going to give them access to educational games or safe spaces like Minecraft education and extension of your maker space, that sort of thing, so they can do that at home? In deciding on what sort of service your website is going to present, it's really important not to add to your workload exponentially. So if you commit to updating reading lists weekly or running a blog or, updating competitions all the time, if you announce that, do you have the time and the staffing to do that? And that's why it's important to look at that before you create the site and before you decide on the services provided by that site. If you have a learning management system like Moodle or Blackboard or Canvas or something like that, how is your school library website a point of difference? That's something to consider. And the other thing that you might want to do, and I would highly recommend, is have a link back and forth. So from your school library website to your school website, or from your school website back to your school library website. On our school site, we're very lucky to have our very own menu tab where people can click and come straight to ltclibrary.com. And then we've returned the favour and chucked it back that way. And that's cross promotion and that's actually advocacy for your school library. And to me, the fact that the school has given us that opportunity means that they value us in their community for teaching and learning, and that we are important. That is probably preferable to being hidden away somewhere. And if you are unable to have that as an option, I would highly recommend that you sit yourself under teaching and learning or curriculum instead of the ubiquitous facilities or buildings we have, because that's where you should be marketing and advocating for yourself in that space. Or, ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? So, something to think about for you. I just really like that old El Paso taco ad and thought it was really good to put there. I do random things like that when I present. Something that you need to think about is legalities and WHS on your website. Digital safety first. It's great to have images of students doing lots of very cool things on your school library website, but you have to be very mindful that those students have permissions to be online, and that your school's policy allows you to do that. it's an opportunity to demonstrate our digital citizenship and awareness, you know, as part of general capabilities where we play, and, you know, model ethical understanding and safe ICT practices and things like that. Always check in with your school when creating a website that everything that you're doing is acceptable to them and follow school policies as well. Something that I seem to have missed in my slideshow is accessibility, and I've mentioned that. We actually have a responsibility to provide not only in our physical space but in our virtual spaces, equity and inclusion for everyone in our community. And so you have to consider things, how do things look in the print space, but how do things look in the online space? Vision Australia actually has a blog post which is called Online and Print Inclusive Design and Legibility Considerations. I highly recommend, I'll share it with Karen to share with the rest of you. If you go and have a read of that, it actually really clearly outlines really important things like alt text, contrast with background text and images, all those sorts of things. And if you're new to the space, it's actually a really good starting point. I only just came across it yesterday before I sort of finalised this slideshow, so it was super useful. So if you haven't done web design PL before, jump into that. And sometimes if you're lucky, the platform that you use for your website has an inbuilt accessibility checker. So it will check for things like, oh, alt text is missing on this image, or the contrast is poor in this space. So yeah, so that's something to keep an eye out for. And then once you've set up your site and you're really excited and you've tested it and whatever, you've launched it out into the world, it's really important to come back and review it regularly. So as you can see from the image on the screen, refine, pause, observe, consider, repeat. It's what we do in our teaching, or we should be doing in our teaching anyway. So initially, sort of sit with the website as it is 6 months, 6 to 12 months, I reckon. It just gives you a chance to work with, like, through terms, semesters, years, that sort of thing. When required, update your staff information, your opening hours, contact details, any resources. Old stuff, remove it. If it's weeded, add new stuff. And then yearly, what I do is I run a broken link checker. You can find them for free online, and it will pick up the URLs that have broken or no longer exist for you, and then you can actually download a list and then use that to cross-check. I use my stats on WordPress to clean up any pages that might not be getting any love and maybe promoting them. It's like you do when you find books in your collection that aren't sort of getting any traction or circulating. You make a "Have you seen this book lately?" display, and you put it in people's faces. You can do the same thing with particular pages on your website through your newsletter or your Google Classrooms or your school blog or whatever. You know, like a "Have you seen this" campaign. And then 5 yearly, which is kind of where we're up to with our website. It's been through lots of different things. I'm actually in the process of brainstorming and collating issues that I've identified for the last year at least, and taken on people's commentary. And I'm reviewing things down to site design, menu design, content. Is it still fit for purpose? Does it fit the community that we have now? I might consider surveying the community again with students, informal chats as I walk around at lunchtime, showing them the site. Those sorts of things are strategies that I'm going to be using till the end of the year. I highly recommend staying away from survey forms. There was a colleague at National Education Summit, and I am quoting here, so I apologise for the language, but basically she said, survey forms are bullshit. And she meant it in the fact that every time you subscribe to a service or you purchase something, you get an email saying, review this service, fill in this form, tell us what you think of this. And people have survey fatigue right now. So actually having informal chats or having focus groups where there's two of you, one scribes and the other one just throws out some questions or puts the site up on a board and students just throw around what they think about it, is probably a lot more valuable as a way of gathering information at the moment than using a form that will collate things for you automatically. It's a little bit more labour intensive, but a lot more honest, I think. Use your website as a promotion and advocacy tool. So at school review time, so we had school review about 3 years ago. We use the national tool that ASA provides, and for the domain culture that promotes learning, the annotation of evidence we used as part of that was our LTC library website with stats, how we use this to identify peak times of assessment at the college, how often the website has been used over, from 2015 to this at this stage, this is 2019, when we should approach teachers to sort of help them with assessment design and resourcing, those sorts of things. Those are website views. This is a weekly view. So we used it in that. And then for the domain targeted use of school resources, LTC library website was there again. So for teachers, we do annotated professional learning lists. For students, we do academic integrity information for teachers, how teacher librarians can help you, student sections, those sorts of things. And it's really powerful to have that evidence just from using your school library website as a form of advocacy. It showcases the services you have, both digital and physical. It showcases events that are coming up. So Chanel has her competitions section on her page. You can use that for your annual report. You can use screenshots. You can if you get comments on your website, you can gather those to use as promotion and advocacy as well. Really powerful if you use it well. Some issues, sad pug. Time. It goes back to purpose. Why are you doing this? Don't promise big things or set up big expectations, because if you don't live up to it, it's worse than if you never offered it at all. So keep it simple and then grow it as you need it. Technical knowledge. So unless you are they have the expertise on the team or time for professional learning, it might be something you build into the timeline for development of your website. It depends on how simple or complex your website gets, or even if you decide to do one at all. So Holly hates that I've chosen WordPress. I chose it because I have coding experience and I can jump in the back end of the WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get template, and I can tweak things and tables and how things look. She can't. And so when I was on leave and she needed to update parts of the website, I had to leave her instructions, and boy, she really wasn't happy with me when I got back from leave. But our website survived and she's learning as she goes, but it really takes time and effort to sort of gather those skills and someone to support you. So we persist. Money. It can take money if you want a customized domain name like we have. It costs money. If you want to have the ability to have a site that's ad-free, which happens with free versions of some website providers. If you want to have control over the types of widgets or the types of templates you want to use, that also costs money. So for us, for WordPress, we pay about $300 a year for the business plan, and we pay an extra $24 a year to have the customized domain name. That's pretty much it. That's how you can contact me. I'll send that to Karen to send out. Are there questions, or if you want me to go back to any aspect of the website, let me know.
There is a question from Bronwyn, which Chanel can make a comment as well, and talking about website accessibility, making a comment about if it's all time, if it's out there and they can access it at any time, then she's saying that some students are surprised when they don't get an answer quickly. And is it important that you have some guidance as to the operating hours digitally, so that the students know that if they do submit a request or whatever feature you might have on your site where they're expecting some response, that you've got some indication of availability?
Chanel, you can go first.
We really only have email as a way to contact the library staff, and the emails don't come directly to me. They go to a shared library email address and then just get forwarded to the relevant person by the library technicians. So I'm not actually sure how many requests come out of hours, or if that is an issue for us, but it's something that I could potentially look into. Actually, it's a good point, and something I should probably check out and see if students are kind of emailing after hours, and whether that needs to be addressed or not.
For us, and it's actually something I had in my notes and I forgot to mention, don't add an Ask a TL form on your website if you don't have people to staff it. It's also really important to publicise very clearly what your opening hours are and availability of staff, which is what we do in our widget and when we speak to students and staff. And as Chanel's school has, we have our Tugsea librarian's email address, and that is checked by someone at least once a day during staffed hours. But if you set up a website and you set up something like Ask a TL for help, you have to make sure that you make it very clear when it will be answered and what the time frame will be around that. We choose quite deliberately not to have something like that for that particular reason, because we just don't have the staff.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely good point. And even though I know some other services that are outside of school libraries have that, they may have the ability to either, do the smart bots that sit behind the scene, but really you need to be conscious of your own time commitment. Yeah, so great. Thank you for that. So there's two different kind of views that have been presented to you for this particular session, where and different examples as well, and also some key points and tips to think about. Think about your layout, your colours, how that represents your school, white space, what you put on, how your menus are navigated, having student involvement in that they're having some input so that it works for them. As Laurie said, if you've got some name there in the menu and they've got no idea what it's for, they wouldn't even bother even checking it out. And ease of access is important. So there's just really, in some ways, it's just common sense that you need to exercise. But as indicated back further, is you really have to set your reason why and what impact it's going to have for the particular audience that you're aiming to address this to. So for both of them, it's really, I believe it's more the students who are benefiting. And of course, there are sections that are relevant for teachers, but it's really the students that you're there to serve, to make it accessible for them. And that for most of them, it's an extension of your physical services so that students have that accessibility as well. And Karen made a point before that was really thankful that prior to all the remote learning that happened, that they had a digital presence before that all happened. So I guess for some people, you've found that it's this massive scramble catch-up mode, and for others, it was just really leveraging what you already had and had that application to do that. What have we got here? Brommer's got voice application might anyone use for vision impaired students? Anything that's free. Anyone had any experience with that? So vision impaired. Laurie, you mentioned that document that you can go and have a look at to see what's going to be, so it does meet the diversity of users. Does that?
Yeah, the vision is
that vision impaired.
I don't think it assumes that. I think that's on another page on their website where they recommend resources. I know for. Yeah, I think usually if students are vision impaired, in my experience, they already have access to voice readers that will read the screen for them.
Yes.
But Vision Australia is a great place to start. I highly recommend them.
Absolutely. I know that I've used that with my mum when she was still alive. We had when she wanted to get on a website, we had this little tool that would pop up and it was provided by the Vision Australia. So look out for that there are services and organisations that support that vision impaired. Raylene's asking, do you have copyright on your websites, or are they licensed under Creative Commons?
Well, on the LibGuides platform, our website is kind of designed to be used internally, really. We haven't put a link on the school website to the library website. So we haven't really considered that, but it is potentially something to look into. I'm not sure how you would go about copywriting a website. Do you know, Laurie?
So, in this day and age where you don't want people to reinvent the wheel, and really what you're sharing is just resources that people could probably access anyway if they did a search of the net, unless it was something specific to your school or something you'd created. But, these days, Holly and I had a really big chat about this, and we're sharing with our school community, so we want them to have access, but we often get a lot of people contacting us, particularly with our Keys to Success sessions, saying, can we use this in our school? And we just went, you know what, we're all here to do the same thing. And that's why we chose the Creative Commons for our website. So if I share my screen again, I can show you on the website. So right at the bottom, it's kind of hidden by the menu thing, but at the bottom it says this work is licensed, and we've got the little icon, and you can actually, and we've got that on all our pages. And if you go to the Creative Commons Australia website, they have a Creative Commons license generator, and you just plug in what you want people to be able to do with stuff, and it generates the icon, a small or a large one, and it gives you the wording to put on your website.
Great, thanks, Laurie. That's a key point, and really great to have access to that Creative Commons guidance. So just waiting to see whether anyone has any other questions. Otherwise, I'll do a close off for us. So thank you in particular to Laurie and Chanel for sharing their websites, and also the insights that they've gained, working from something that was already there and then adding the value to that. And then also, Laurie, the steps and processes going through from scratch right through, and also 2 different platforms, and looking at the affordability of that, and making suggestions for those who may be a little bit low budget oriented, that using things like Google Slides, at least as a starter. So there's different pathways, but the key thing is finding out your why. Why do you want to set this up, and why do you want to do it? And then looking at making sure that you don't overpromise and underdeliver, being mindful of your time and what's involved, but really leveraging the existing library management systems that you've got, and making it more visible and accessible for students to be able to access. So some great information, and I'm just going to share screen here. Hopefully everyone will be able to see, just sharing what's coming up. I've got Katrina from Captains and Poets. All of us are aware of the version 9 now of the curriculum, with some of that being implemented and rolled out across Australia. And one key component, I believe, that school libraries can address through even what's been shared this evening, is how to support young people in the development of their self-awareness, their social awareness, their self-management and social responsibilities. And that's all part of this general capability here, the personal and social capability. And you can see here that on the page, it outlines each of those components, and on the page back from this, it gives more detail. And so with what Katrina's going to do is kind of unpack some of that, but also unpack it in the context of what is embedded within the national curriculum, of how we can have this social emotional learning. Now, in other countries, social emotional learning is a big thing. In Australia, I think it's just trying to gain a little bit groundswell, but I see that the school library is a space and place where we can support young people because we have that flexibility of what we have happening. We have things like the library management systems. We have also the websites that you've got, where you can give young people access to these things and guide them through that process, and particularly through having the reading material that's new coming in, having the annotations and the reviews. All of that is all part of helping to connect young people so that they can understand who they are and how they will connect and relate to others and survive in the world. So that's coming up on the 7th of September. So if people are interested in that, or even if you may not be interested, but you may have staff at your school who are directly responsible for that particular wellbeing component for young people in the school, then this would be a great session to come to for that webinar. Now, Laurie's going to send me some information. I'll get that out in an email tomorrow. Also, at the end of this, there'll be a little pop-up feedback form. It'd be great to give us some feedback, particularly suggesting other topics that you might want to discuss in a forum like this. And even if you want to come and present on something, this is the opportunity to do it. Each term, I'll be hosting something so that we can keep the conversations going around what it is for school libraries and the changing landscape that we're involved in. So thanks, Laurie, thanks, Chanel, and thank you everybody for giving up your evening and joining us.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks,
See everyone.
Karen.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.